Well, good morning and welcome to a very special edition of VoteVets Live. Earlier this morning, nearly 500 senior national security leaders released an open letter endorsing Joe Biden to be our next president and commander-in-chief. The list includes former generals, admirals, senior non-commissioned officers, ambassadors, and senior civilian national security leaders across the political spectrum, Democrats, Republicans, and independents. In their letter, the group writes, quote, "The next president will inherit a nation and a world in turmoil. The current president has demonstrated he is not equal to the enormous responsibilities of his office. He cannot rise to meet the challenges, large or small." They continue, "Joe Biden has the character, principles, wisdom, and leadership necessary to address a world on fire. That is why Joe Biden must be the next president of the United States, why we vigorously support his election, and why we urge our fellow citizens to do the same." So this morning, we at VoteVets are proud to present the very first campaign event with a group of senior national security leaders who signed that letter. To get us started, I'd like to welcome a friend of VoteVets, retired Navy Rear Admiral Mike Smith, who commanded the John C. Stennis Carrier Strike Group and was the division director on the Navy staff responsible for Navy strategy and policy. He is the founder and executive director of National Security Leaders for Biden, an independent group of nearly 500 former national security leaders, admirals, generals, and senior enlisted dedicated to influencing undecided voters in swing states to vote for Joe Biden. Rear Admiral Mike Smith. Mike, welcome back. Thank you for being here on this busy morning for your group.
Thanks, Will, and thanks to you and VoteVets for hosting this panel. It's great to be here.
It's our honor. Now, Mike, you founded this effort and you led the charge to organize this morning's open letter from 489 senior national security leaders who have now endorsed Joe Biden for president. For those watching who haven't had a chance to read the letter, could you tell us what it says and why these leaders chose to sign their names to it?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. This letter is signed by a really diverse group of people. There's almost 500 national security leaders. There's Democrats, there's Republicans, there's independents, and we all came together really out of a collective, deep concern over the current incumbent in the White House. I think that, as our letter says, we believe that America's democracy is being undermined every day. And it's undermined by a man who, you can see in the press, he has a disdain for the Constitution and its guiding principles. So we came together really to send a message that the only option is to vote for Joe Biden in November. He has the leadership, he has the integrity, he has the experience, he has the empathy that we need in the White House. We've all served under Republican and Democratic presidents, and it's time that we restore America's leadership, and that's what this letter is about. Joe Biden has the principles that will underscore the concept that a nation's word is its bond, that you don't treat allies with disrespect, and above all, the word of a president has to mean something. Don't lie to the American people over and over again. So that's what this letter is about. As you said, it's really a letter to the undecided voters on why they must vote for Joe Biden. And we're proud of it. We hope it makes an impact on those undecided voters. And we look forward to the panel today. So thank you.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, as we all saw last night from the White House briefing podium or wherever the president delivered those remarks, he continues to prove the point that you're making every day, that he doesn't believe in our democracy and a peaceful transition of power, unlike the signers of this letter. Now, Mike, your role as executive director of National Security Leaders for Biden now, can you outline what the group plans to do between now and Election Day on November 3rd to get your message out, as you said, to the American public and to help Joe Biden win this election?
I'd be happy to. I'm supporting a group of leaders that are just absolutely amazing. We have a great group of co-chairs, and then our steering committee is organized. So there's really two efforts we're doing right now. First is an outreach effort. So we've got a op-ed campaign. We'll be writing op-eds on key issues that we believe will resonate with the undecided voter and try and explain why Joe Biden is the answer to that issue that they might have. We've created a social media team, so we're able to take the op-eds and we'll be able to expand and amplify their message to even more people. We have a brand new effort we're starting with videos where we're having each of our members make 60-second videos that, again, we can add onto the social media campaign and we can, again, get it out to more people. And lastly, in our outreach, we have a broadcast media team. So, for example, when the president when the news came out in that Atlantic article on the horrible remarks that the president made, we were able to get our members onto national TV and also onto local TV in the battleground states. So that's what their outreach effort is doing. And then secondly, from now until the election, there's really only one answer, and that is we got to get the vote out. So we've taken our members, we've looked at their backgrounds, we've created teams that are aligned to each of the state Biden for president organizations in the battleground states, and they're working closely with them. Our members are trying to do everything we can to help get out the vote. So those are our two big efforts. We're also doing fundraising. We've collectively raised money for the campaign because, as you know, in order to get out the vote, we got to be able to get out there and send the message. So that's what we're going to do. There's a lot of work to do between now and the election, and we certainly can't take anything for granted. And all of us really just want to energize and be able to advocate for Joe Biden.
Absolutely. No, and you're doing something really special, Mike, in taking voices who have served here in DC at the highest levels and actually pushing them out to the states to talk to everyday voters who, I think you and I have both talked about this in the past, want to learn and have the ability to absorb and comprehend just how dangerous Donald Trump has been on the world stage and why we need someone like Joe Biden in the White House. Now, before we go, I want a 60-second final question with you. There are veterans and former civil servants paying attention today who may recognize some of the names from your group as people they served with, they worked for, and admire still. What is your request to grassroots supporters out there about what they should be doing between now and Election Day to actually make a difference?
Got to get out the vote. You got to get a hold of your friends. You got to get a hold of your neighbors. You got to find the neighbor who maybe can't get out very well and drive them to the polls. But everything we're doing between now and the election has to be about getting the vote out. If you're a senior national security leader, we welcome you to come join our effort. We already have the ability to help you with op-eds. If you're a veteran, join your state Veterans for Biden organization. Do phone banking. Do whatever you can to, if your state allows you, knock on doors. But the thing that we all have to do is get the vote out in November.
Absolutely. Rear Admiral Mike Smith, thank you for joining us this morning. Thanks for your leadership on this. It's always great to see you, and we hope to see you back soon.
Thanks, Will. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Be well. Now it's my honor to welcome Ambassador Susan Rice as our next guest. Ambassador Rice served as President Obama's National Security Advisor and as U.S. Permanent Representative to the United Nations from 2009 to 2017. She is the author of the New York Times bestselling memoir, Tough Love, My Story of the Things Worth Fighting For. Ambassador Rice, good morning, and thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Will. It's great to be with you. Hi, everybody.
Thank you so much. Now, ma'am, I want to jump right into our conversation. We have a lot of people watching this morning. The letter that was released today by national security leaders for Biden includes former generals, admirals, diplomats, and people who served across the entire executive branch in national security roles, and also who served under presidents of both parties. As one of the co-chairs of this effort, and based on your experience serving at the highest levels of the Obama-Biden administration, what does the size and scope of this endorsement letter say to you about Vice President Biden's leadership on national security issues?
Well, Will, this is truly an extraordinary letter. I'm not sure that we've seen one of its type before. Almost 500 national security leaders from both parties, Democrats and Republicans, independents, people who've never been involved in politics before, political appointees, career appointees of all different sorts, coming together, military, civilian, diplomats, development experts, to convey their recognition that at this moment, Joe Biden is a man we need to be president. And they understand that because they know Joe Biden, first of all, has many years of experience in national security and foreign policy. He is a known quantity to them. He has judgment. He has integrity. He has an appreciation for America's leadership role in the world and the power that that can bring to our interests and values when exercised wisely and effectively. And they know that at a time when our standing globally has plummeted, when President Trump has denigrated the office of the presidency and made the United States a pariah in some respects on the world stage, that we need a change, and we need a decisive change. And this may not be about, whether everybody who signed this letter necessarily supports all of Joe Biden's policies. I'm quite confident that is not the case. But what they do understand is that we need a leader of experience and integrity and judgment at this critical moment. And many of these folks will have worked with Joe Biden, when he was in the Senate, when he was vice president, and many of them didn't agree with Joe Biden on every policy issue. I can attest to that firsthand. And yet they know that he is the right person for this moment, that we need to elect him to bring our country together, to restore our democracy, to bolster our national security, and to get past Donald Trump, who has done so much damage to our alliances, to our global standing, and has done so much to elevate and benefit our adversaries.
Absolutely. No, it's definitely a theme this week, as you mentioned, the people who are putting country before party this year, including Cindy McCain, whose husband obviously ran against President Obama and Vice President Biden in 2008. You're someone as well who has worked with Vice President Biden very closely. And I want to talk about that a little bit in the context of President Trump's record. He has tried to undo so much of the progress that you, President Obama, and Vice President Biden championed to lead on the world stage in a way that really reflected the best of who we are as a nation. One example being the Iran deal, which President Trump has abandoned. VoteVets strongly supported that deal as a chance to choose diplomacy and lower the likelihood of a devastating military conflict that would have cost countless American military lives, not to mention the civilian damage as well. Could you speak to how a national security posture that includes all of the voices in today's letter, diplomats, career civil servants, and yes, those with military experience, is better for the military, for their families, and for the nation as a whole?
Absolutely. Well, people who have experience in national security policy understand that to be effective internationally, to bring others with us and to advance our values and interests, we need to rely on all the tools in our toolbox. Sometimes people refer to national security as built on a three-legged stool of military force and strength, diplomacy, and development. And when any one of those legs is way out of balance, the whole stool is weakened and can't function effectively. I think all of us who signed this letter understand that the use of force ought to be a last resort, not a first resort, and to protect our security and our interests, as well as the extraordinary sacrifice of our men and women in uniform and that of their families. We have an obligation to employ diplomacy to the best of our capacity and to employ tools like development and public diplomacy to prevent and resolve conflicts, so that when and if we have to enter into military combat, we can do so with confidence that we've exhausted all of the other options and that what we are doing is necessary to advance U.S. interests and values. And so that's why a combination of expertise from all these diverse elements, all these pillars of that stool are so important. These people understand that we are strongest when all of these elements come together. And as, to quote Jim Mattis, or to paraphrase Jim Mattis, who said, if the State Department isn't funded adequately and we don't invest in diplomacy, then I have to buy more bullets and more weapons. That's exactly the case.
Absolutely. And keeping on that same theme about the people who make that three-legged stool possible, another trend of the Trump administration has been devaluing the experience and really denigrating, I think it's fair to say, our federal workforce including the loss of irreplaceable career expertise in the State Department and other agencies. Those ranks also include hundreds of thousands of veterans who choose to continue serving their country after leaving military service, making up over 31% of the entire federal workforce. How damaging has President Trump been in this respect? What are some of the impacts of that? And how do you think Vice President Biden will show that he values those professionals once he's back in the White House?
Well, what Donald Trump has done from day one, very explicitly by his own admission, is to go about the mission of what Steve Bannon called the deconstruction of the administrative state. They want to tear down our institutions of national security, intelligence, law enforcement, diplomacy, even the civilian and military elements in the Pentagon, and subordinate them to the political interests of one man, Donald Trump. And nothing could be more damaging to our national security and to our interests. And so, this effort to chase out professional career public servants, whether civilian or military, foreign service or the intelligence community, is designed to weaken the United States. And one has to ask, why on God's green earth would the commander-in-chief want to do that? Why would he want to hollow out our capacity to be competitive and effective on the global stage? And yet that's exactly what he's done, quite deliberately and systematically. Now, Joe Biden has served in the United States government, in the Senate, and in the executive branch for many years. And he knows personally the value and the contributions and the expertise of our career public servants. He's confirmed countless numbers of them when he was on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. He's worked with them hand in glove, military and civilian, from the White House. And he's absolutely committed to building back better our human capital in the federal government, and in particular in our national security agencies and our law enforcement and intelligence agencies. So I think you can fully expect that the mission given to his senior leaders who are appointed to helm these critical agencies will include a clear-cut mandate to recruit and retain and support the men and women who are serving this country in the public service, without which we cannot be as strong and as effective as we must.
Absolutely. Very well said. And keeping on with this kind of focus on the personnel that make our national security possible, the list of national security leaders for Biden also reflects something that has been painfully lacking over the past few years: voices in national security roles who actually reflect the American people that they serve. Under President Obama and Vice President Biden, we saw women at the table in the Situation Room and in the Oval Office. We also saw openly LGBT individuals leading at the highest levels of the Pentagon, just to name a couple of examples. Can you explain why that experience matters, why it makes us stronger as a nation, and how you think Vice President Biden will bring back that effort to restore diverse voices in national security?
Well, interestingly, Will, even the Trump administration, with the whitest, malest leadership team ever in the modern history of the U.S. government, likes to claim that it is diverse. And the White House has been saying something that I want to rebut very directly here on the record right now, which is that they have a higher percentage of women in the leadership positions at the National Security Council than ever before. That is a bald-faced lie. When I was National Security Advisor, I was a woman. My principal deputy was a woman. The Assistant to the President for Homeland Security and Counterterrorism was a woman. The Chief of Staff of the National Security Council was a woman. We were all women. And yes, we had men on our team, thank goodness, and they were wonderful partners. But to claim that is false and it's offensive. But moving beyond that, we understood in the Obama administration that when you have representation at a decision-making table that reflects the full diversity of our country, male and female, gay and straight, Black, white, Latino, Asian, Native American, all religions, all people of various ethnic backgrounds, that is not just a nice to do. It's not just something that we do because it makes us feel good or look good. It's a national security imperative. And Barack Obama and Joe Biden understood that. Why is it a national security imperative? Well, countless studies in government, in the nonprofit world, in the private sector have all consistently shown that when you have diverse voices at a table, whether it's a corporate boardroom or the principals committee and then in the White House Situation Room, you will make better decisions. The outcomes will be more effective. We are the most diverse nation on the face of the earth. That's one of our most extraordinary comparative advantages when it comes to diplomacy and relating with others and trying to bring other countries and peoples along with us to service our interests and values. And we don't leverage that great asset when all we show to the world and all we have making decisions are all people who look and alike and come from very similar backgrounds. So that is a fundamental, foundational principle for Joe Biden. He is deeply, deeply committed to bringing all together a collection of people to serve in his administration that fully reflect the tremendous diversity of America. His selection of Kamala Harris is a very important initial down payment on that commitment, but it is just the beginning. And, what I am among the many things about this letter that make me proud, Will, is the fact that it is a very diverse group of people, both within the ranks of the general officers and flag officers, where, frankly, historically, at the senior most levels, it hasn't been as diverse as it should be and could be, but yet we have brought together a diverse group, and especially among all the other national security leaders, civilian and diplomats and others. It's an extraordinarily diverse group with many, many women, and that reflects the broad understanding that Joe Biden has about what this nation is, who we are, and how we can be most competitive internationally.
Absolutely, ma'am. And I mean, you bring up a lot of good points there. And often the Trump administration's photos speak for themselves when it is only white men. And something that we've talked about in previous versions of VoteVets Live, including our Pride Month event, is to remind people that it's not just the absence. It has been deliberate attacks against LGBT couples in the federal workforce, against our transgender troops, against immigrants who are serving our nation uniform and deployed in harm's way. And those things are real tangible harm. It's not just the verbiage from Donald Trump. It's
absolutely. I mean, I'm really glad, Will, that you emphasize that, because we have men and women risking their lives to serve our country, wearing our flag. And this president wants to denigrate them and put them at risk because of who they are or who they love. And that's just an outrage that we cannot allow to stand. If somebody is willing to wear the uniform of the United States and commit to give their lives to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, then for God's sake, we ought to value them and embrace them, regardless of who they are, where they come from, what they look like, who they love.
Absolutely, ma'am. Now, I know we're out of time, but a quick final question for everybody who's watching at home today and agrees with you that we need Joe Biden in the Oval Office come January. How important is it to find a few hours between now and November 3rd to volunteer with the campaign and to make a plan and actually vote?
This is the most important election of our lifetimes. Our very unity as a nation and our democracy depend on it. What Donald Trump said yesterday, more explicitly than he's ever said before, which is he's not prepared to commit to honor a peaceful transition of power, is the most outrageous statement out of the mouth of an American president that I think we may ever have heard. And the only way to counter a president who is hell-bent on doing everything and anything to cheat and steal an election to preserve himself in power is to overwhelmingly reject his leadership at the ballot box. This needs to be a landslide election. And it needs to be a landslide election that starts in the Eastern time zone on November 3rd, with the critical swing states on the East Coast building a wave that it is irrefutable over the course of the evening. So every single one of us has to do our absolute damnedest to be at the polls, if not on election day, then before election day, mailing in our ballots early, as soon as you get it, if that's what if that's how you plan to vote, getting everybody you can contact to do the same, and work and make calls and send texts and help to get out the vote. This is the fight for the future of the United States of America and all that we believe in and all that we hold dear. We cannot allow a president who wants nothing but to turn us into a country like Vladimir Putin's Russia, to preserve his power indefinitely and at all costs, get away with stealing our democracy. This is the time for us to stand up together, unite, and put everything we can into defeating him resoundingly on November 3rd. So all you can do is absolutely critical. And I want to thank you for what you have done and what you all will do.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Rice. Thank you for your time. And more importantly, thanks for your service to our country and everything you've done for our service members, their families, and veterans like us at VoteVets. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Will. Thank you all very, very much.
Thanks, man. We'll see you soon. Next, we're going to turn our focus to the incredible support for Vice President Biden announced this morning amongst senior military leaders, including more than 200 retired generals and admirals, 22 of them 4 stars, and senior enlisted military leaders as well. Let's welcome 2 of them now. Retired U.S. Army General Pete Corelli served as the 32nd Vice Chief of Staff of the United States Army and as military assistant to Secretary of Defense Robert Gates. He was the multinational corps commander in Iraq in 2006 and commanded the 1st Cavalry Division in Iraq from 2004 to 2005. 2013, General Corelli received the Patriot Award from the Congressional Medal of Honor Society. And in retirement, he's worked to fund and support collaborative research to find diagnostics and treatments for service members suffering from traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress. General Corelli holds a Bachelor of Science from Seattle University, a Master of Public Administration from the Graduate School of Public Affairs at the University of Washington, and is a graduate of the National War College. And retired U.S. Army Command Sergeant Major Michelle Jones, who served as the 9th Command Sergeant Major of the U.S. Army Reserve, a post she held from October 2002 until August of 2006. She was the first woman non-commissioned officer to serve in that highest enlisted position of the U.S. Army Reserve, and was at one time the highest ranking enlisted African-American woman in any branch of the United States military. General Corelli and Command Sergeant Major Jones, good morning and welcome to VoteVets Live. Thanks for being here.
Good morning and thank you.
Sergeant Major Jones, it's great to see you again.
We always love a good reunion, especially in these virtual times. I want to thank you both so much, and we have a lot of great questions for you. A lot of people who are excited to hear what you have to say. General, I want to start with you. This morning's National Security Leaders for Biden announcement included over 200 retired flag and general officers across different service branches, 22 of them 4 stars like yourself. Some of those have been politically active in the past, but a lot of them had never put their names out on a letter like this before. Why do you think so many of your fellow retired senior military leaders are supporting Joe Biden to be our next commander-in-chief, sir?
Well, I'd have to put myself in that second group of individuals, one who has never supported a candidate in any election at any time before this year. And I can't speak for the 203 flag officers who signed the letter, but I can say that if I were to poll that group, I would argue high on their list would be a feeling that there's a real threat to the republic, a real threat to this country and what it stands for. And because of that threat, it's caused many of us who swore we would never, ever do anything like this to support a particular candidate, come up and decide to support Joe Biden because we believe he has the leadership, the integrity, the courage to take this country forward and return it to what it was in 2016.
Absolutely. Command Sergeant Jones, I'd like to ask you a similar question. National Security Leaders for Biden also includes some very high-ranking former enlisted senior leaders like yourself. Why do you think so many are with Joe Biden when it comes to this election?
First of all, what I'd like to say is senior enlisted members have always been in a dialogue with national security. You don't see them that often in the public eye. And the fact that we represent approximately 80% of the force, the enlisted men and women. So we have a vested interest in how that commander-in-chief and who that commander-in-chief is. And I believe that one of the reasons that so many of us have decided to really step up and support him, because again, as the general stated, the leadership that he exhibits are the core values that we look at in terms of NCOs, being trustworthy, doing what you say you're going to do, and supporting those that serve and their military family members. We look at him as one of us because he is a military family member. So we know what good leadership looks like. And that is why that we're standing up and we're supporting Joe Biden. Yes.
Absolutely. General Corelli, sir, I want to talk a little bit about where things stand today for the U.S. military. We've seen turmoil at the highest ranks of the Pentagon and widespread reporting about the damage that President Trump has done to that careful relationship between political leaders and military leaders. From your perspective, can you summarize the impact of the Trump presidency on the military as an institution and the impact on our senior-most military leaders?
Well, I know some are going to criticize us for signing a letter like we've signed and saying that you're only politicizing the process. But I don't really believe that. I don't look at this as an election between Republicans and Democrats. I look at it as an election between Democrats and Donald Trump. And I've got to say, you could look at specifics from the assault on the Uniform Code of Military Justice to a total lack of leadership in the pandemic, to flaming racial divides in this country. All those things have put the military in a very, very difficult situation. But I believe in our military. I believe in the strength of our military and the strength of our military leadership. And I believe we'll get through this. But many of us have come to this, have signed this letter, because we really believe that the Constitution, which we swore to, at least me, 10 times in my career, that I would support and defend the Constitution of the United States, not a commander-in-chief, not Congress, not a political party, but the Constitution of the United States is under threat.
Absolutely. We saw that, as Ambassador Rice mentioned, we saw that last night from the president himself refusing to commit to a peaceful transition of power. Unbelievable. Command Sergeant Major Jones, let's talk about those actions that President Trump has taken that have been felt up and down the chain of command. We can look back as recently as the coronavirus outbreak on the USS Roosevelt earlier this year as just one example of when the president's failings and his political prioritization have directly impacted rank and file service members. What impact has the president's failed leadership had on the soldiers like the ones you led and their families?
First of all, I want to say one of the most disheartening things that specifically to COVID-19, approximately 44,000 service member have died from COVID-19. Okay. Approximately 5,800 family members have died from COVID-19. Military members always, it is the core of everything that we do. We get prepared. We prepare in the event of. That's from good leadership, giving us the time, giving us the information to do the things that we need to do so we can respond. Okay. Failing to let us know, failing to let America know, military members were in the same boat as everyone else. The impact of that is quite simple. Number one, for those military members that were expecting to move, they couldn't move. For those military members that have family care plans that were in place, they could not travel to get their children to where they needed to take them in at all or in a timely fashion because all the daycare centers were closed. My soldiers, for example, and I still call them my soldiers in Puerto Rico, there are limited medical facilities in Puerto Rico. So when you don't inform and you don't tell, and military members cannot get prepared to do what they need to do in the interest of this country, then it is disgraceful. It is an impact that at the lowest level. And when I say at the lowest level, I'm talking about the children of those military members that couldn't go and be where they needed to be. So it is very much in common with the American citizen, but the devastation or the impact on the military member is greater because the expectation of what we have to do or what they have to do is much greater. So it's just disgraceful. It's just disgraceful.
Yeah, I'd like to add to what the Command Sergeant Major said. I mean, if you have to go anywhere to look at where we've seen a total lack of leadership, all you have to look is at this country's response to COVID-19. And the failure of our president to stand up and do the things that are necessary, the things that every single leader that has served for a year or for 40 years, like myself, understands needs to be done in a situation where you're quote unquote at war, as the president said. Which one of us would have gone down range without body armor? And the fact that we allowed the wearing of a mask to be politicized, my gosh, that's just horrible. We're protecting ourselves and we're protecting everyone around us. These are leadership principles that people who have served in the military believe in. And I've got to believe the 200,000 folks who have lost their lives due to COVID, those numbers could be so much smaller had we invoked the National Response Plan and done the things that are necessary to get this thing under control.
Absolutely. Well said, sir. And sir, I want to pivot a little bit to look ahead to the future. Something that is also a consequence of the president's kind of chaos show across the federal government. So we're not tackling the big issues we need to. An issue that you have led on throughout your career has been mental health for our service members and veterans and other Americans. What's the task ahead for a commander-in-chief in Joe Biden to tackle big challenges like that, personnel issues that are key to doing right by our men and women in uniform? Why do you think he's up to the job?
Well, I think we've got to look at a higher level here and not look at specific things, but just we've got to find a way to place science where science needs to be. And I know that that's what a President Biden will do. He will follow the Tony Fauci's, who are the experts, and do the things that are necessary to get this virus under control. He'll listen to the experts on climate change and do the things that are necessary. But we've had an assault on science that just scares me. Having worked with both the FDA and the CDC throughout my career and in retirement, I know that those are not deep state organizations. Those are fantastic organizations filled with patriots who are only trying to do the right thing, to use their education to help the American people. And the fact that we've seen this assault on science and what science brings to us, that's what the president is going to have to attack, and I know he will.
Absolutely. Command Sergeant Major Jones, I want to talk a little about morale for men and women in uniform like the ones you used to lead. There have been so many attacks, whether it was the transgender troop attacks, going after immigrants in the military, where the president has really betrayed those who have sworn an oath to defend this country. What do you think it will take for a Vice President Biden, once he's president, to actually restore confidence in the commander-in-chief in that role?
First of all, recognizing that what is wrong. That's number one. Number two, listening to those military members and their families about things that concern them. That is critical for any leader, to listen. You remove your own thoughts, your biases. You are there to represent and to, with good guidance, good advisors, and listening to everyone from the top to the bottom to come to those decisions to make sure that their needs are met inconsistent with all the other things. The other thing that I do want to add too, one of the things and that I love about this group, the National Security Leaders for Biden, if you look at those names, you see men, you see women, you see Hispanic, you see African American, you see Caucasian, you see Asian, you see Native American. Okay, that is what the military is comprised of. We have come together not under any political banner, Democrat, Republican, Independent. We have come together for a common good for this country, for individuals. And so by Joe Biden exhibiting those same characteristics, which every military member can resonate with, okay, that will begin the process, because a lot of damage, quite frankly, has been done. A lot of division has been done in so many ways. So by listening, taking good counsel from the people that know, such as scientists, senior leaders, senior military leaders, veteran organizations, family members, and doing the things that are necessary. But it's going to take some time, and showing by action and deed and word that what he says, he's going to do what he says he's going to do, and is trustworthy, period. And that's part of it. And that's a big piece of it, but it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen overnight. It's a lot of work to be done, and we know that. And the thing about it, Joe Biden knows that, and he is up to the task. And I do believe that.
Absolutely.
I do believe that.
That's very well said. Now, I want to ask you each a final question. Obviously, our currently serving men and women in uniform cannot involve themselves in politics. But we find that some veterans carry that skepticism of political involvement beyond their service. We'll start with you, General. If someone's watching and on the fence about getting involved, volunteering a few hours of their time between now and the election because they believe in everything that you've said and in Joe Biden, why would you encourage them to get in the arena and do so?
I think all they have to do is look at the headlines that we're all reading today, calling into question a peaceful transition of power. That alone is something that I never ever believed that I would ever hear uttered in this country. I think first what they should do is ensure that they vote. And that may take a couple hours of their time. That may take going and standing in a line and waiting in these COVID-19 times in order to cast that ballot. But they should vote. That's absolutely critical. And if they, like me, believe that this really isn't an election between Republicans and Democrats, if they, like me, really believe that this great experiment is under threat, and we might lose it, I think that they should get involved in any way that their heart takes them.
Absolutely. Command Sergeant Major Jones.
I would say don't sit on the bench. Don't sit on the sideline. Actually be a player on this team. The second thing is that I would say military members cannot speak up in this place and space when they wear the uniform. As a veteran, we have to speak out for them. We have to, and I'll say specifically for enlisted men and women, as an enlisted, senior enlisted person, my job was to take care of my soldiers specifically. And as a veteran, I believe that obligation did not stop. So I would say to all my brothers and sisters in arms out there that are veterans, get off the sideline, be a part of the team, speak out for them, do what you need to do to make sure that they have the same type of commander-in-chief that we all have had prior to this current one. So please do. Don't. And the last thing I have to say is don't be a background singer, be the lead singer in this. You have to take the lead. So thank you.
That's a great note to end on. General Corelli, sir, Command Sergeant Major Jones, thank you for joining us today. Thanks for making your voices heard in this election. It matters so much. I know it matters to our VoteVets supporters who are watching today. Thanks for your leadership. I will hope to see you again soon.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thank you both. Also on the list of senior leaders in the national security community who are endorsing Joe Biden are military family members who have sacrificed greatly for our nation. One of them is Mrs. Susie Schwartz, who has long been a champion for the military community and is the spouse of former Air Force Chief of Staff General Norton Schwartz. As a tireless advocate for military families, she serves as a board member for the Fisher House Foundation and the Air Force Enlisted Village. She also serves as an advisor to the Military Spouse Advocacy Network and the Association of Military Spouse Entrepreneurs. Mrs. Schwartz, good morning. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. It's kind of a different thing for me to be included with these great American patriots, but I sure am happy to be here.
Well, we all so respect your service, your family service, and everything that you've done for this community. And I think that's why your voice is so important as part of this effort. I want to ask you about that. I mean, your family served in the United States Air Force for somewhere around 4 decades, from my count. General Schwartz.
And I'm a brat too.
Oh, okay. Well, so you've been serving
my entire life.
Well, you towards the end of your, military career, you and General Schwartz, he was the top general in the Air Force during those first few years of President Obama and Vice President Biden's administration. Today, you're part of a group of very senior military family members who are also joining this effort and endorsing Joe Biden for president. Could you tell us why you decided to publicly support the vice president and how that decision might be connected to your experience getting to know him and President Obama during their time in office?
Sure. Happy to. This is a big step for me. As you know, we don't get involved in politics normally. And I just feel passionate about the Bidens, both of them. I have respected every president that my husband served. It was wonderful. I enjoyed President Bush. I enjoyed the Obamas. I was very excited when they were sworn in. I was there at the inauguration, at the parade, at the balls. It was just great. So I feel passionate for Joe Biden just because he is passionate about military families. He honestly cares. And I believe he's the right person to heal the broken hearts in this country. And that is what I feel every single day. I feel heartbroken when I watch service members used as props. I feel heartbroken when I saw my Air Force Academy football team in the Rose Garden, basically standing behind someone doing a political speech. So I know in my heart that Joe Biden and Jill Biden will bring integrity, respect to all Americans, including the military people.
Absolutely. No, that's well said, man. I want to talk a little bit more about, as you mentioned, Dr. Biden. During that last administration, both First Lady Michelle Obama and Second Lady Dr. Jill Biden launched an initiative called Joining Forces that supported our men and women in uniform and their families, and tried to bring the support not just from within the government, but from outside, and bring other people and communities into the fold. Right. What does Dr. Biden mean to the military family community? And could you expand a little bit what you alluded to, what it would mean to have military parents as President and First Lady of the United States?
Sure. I was there in the very beginning of Joining Forces. I was invited to the White House. They wanted our opinion. And I just have to say, the idea that we were around a table with the First Lady and the Second Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, asking our opinion was wonderful. They asked the opinion of senior leaders. They asked junior spouses. And it was really great to watch that unfold. And you knew that they were passionate about it. Both of them. I have seen Jill Biden at USO stuffing events, where you stuff the bags that go to the troops. I have seen her speak to young women, young spouses across the board. And she just speaks from her heart. And you know it right away when you're around her. And the fact that she was able to work, I know that sounds crazy, but young spouses will just be cheering her on, because the idea that she could work while her husband was serving just gives them sort of the empowerment to believe that if she can do it, they can as well. So I know that her heart is in the right place always. And I just have to say, I was there also at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce when they rolled out the Military Spouse Employment Partnership. Mm-hmm. I was in the front row with my husband. And honestly, I know this sounds so corny, but tears were rolling down my face. And my husband looked at me like, what is wrong with you? And I said, honey, the federal government has found a way through all the departments to support military spouses. And I would have killed for that as a young spouse. Mm-hmm. And then when the Obamas and the Bidens left office, I have to honestly tell you that young spouses believed that joining forces, they thought it was just an institution. They believed that it would continue. And I know they look forward to joining forces 2.0, whatever it turns into.
Yes, no, and I think it's also going to take on a new importance. Something that we've been talking about in the economic fallout of this pandemic is that so much of the work that was done around veteran employment and military spouse employment as part of that initiative is at risk, and those jobs don't exist in some places now. So it's going to take a real, 2.0 effort, as you said, yes, to bring that back. Right. And then finally, I want to close on kind of this getting involved in the election piece that you mentioned. Let's say that there are some military spouses or family members who are watching today who agree with you in supporting Joe Biden for president, who haven't done political stuff in the past, but are thinking of volunteering with the campaign despite everything else that they're balancing. Why would you encourage them to spend a few hours getting involved between now and November 3rd?
Number one, because it makes you feel good. You're supporting the right person. If you feel helpless out there, just do it. I talked to a young spouse this morning and she said, ma'am, just tell them, just do it. I said, okay, I will. They are passionate. They can move mountains. So just take that same passion that they show to wounded warriors, to military spouse employment. Take that passion and run with it. Volunteer in your local polling place. Talk to your neighbors. Put a sign on your yard if you don't live on base and you can put a sign in your yard. Anything. I mean, I think I have talked my 86-year-old mother into voting for Biden. So if I can do that, they can do anything.
Absolutely. Mrs. Schwartz, thank you for your service to our country, for all the work that you're doing on behalf of military families. This has been a really nice conversation. I hope that we'll have you back. And I think you're going to be a star on the campaign trail over these next few weeks, helping Joe Biden out.
I don't know about that, but thank you for having me.
Thank you, ma'am. Have a great day. We'll see
you too.
Okay. And now to close out this morning's special edition of VoteVets Live, let's welcome back a familiar face from our DNC Week programming last month. Leo Cruz, the one and only. Leo is a Navy veteran with years of experience in state and national issue advocacy and electoral campaigns. During the Obama administration, he served in the Department of Defense in each branch of the military services. Who does he root for during military college football games? Leo currently serves as the Veterans and Military Families Engagement Director for the Biden-Harris campaign. And good morning, Leo.
Good morning, Will, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I want to start with your reaction. We've had a great event this morning covering this blockbuster list of almost 500 senior national security leaders publicly endorsing Joe Biden to be our next commander-in-chief. What's your reaction in reading the letter and looking at the leaders who are stepping forward?
Yeah, well, and thanks again, and thanks to Admiral Smith, the national security leaders for Biden, for putting this together, and all those that signed the letter. And listening to the program, this is what happens when you go last. Is a lot of the great stuff has already been highlighted, and I'm going to echo what Ambassador Rice said, because she was a leader in the Obama administration for me and many others who were people of color, people of diverse backgrounds in the Obama-Biden administration. And she said it best when, this list reflects the diversity of our country. And I think with even some of the other leaders we've had on this morning, the military reflects America and what's great about America. And that's why these policies matter about like the transgender ban and don't ask, don't tell, and desegregating the military. All those were movements that the military led the way to heal our country and make it great. And so, what it also speaks is to diversity beyond the military of our national security enterprise. Mm-hmm. And, what's great about it is not just the names that we recognize on the top, but a lot of the folks that, I had to look up of where they served, and honestly, some names I were familiar with when they were not generals and admirals, but lower, majors and lieutenant colonels. So, it just really reflects the great diversity that we have. And I think some of the speakers that spoke earlier was, look, this isn't just a whole bunch of Democrats supporting the Democratic nominee. This is Democrats, independents, Republicans, people that have never spoken out before, who are saying, as the Lincoln Project throws out every once in a while, is this is Trump versus America. Mm-hmm. And the ideal and the values that America reflects is exactly what motivated these people to come on out and say that, to a person, everyone that signed this letter knows that Joe Biden represents the values, the intelligence and experience and leadership that this country desperately needs.
Absolutely. That's very well said. Now, Leo, the last time we had you here on VoteVets Live, we were wrapping up a great week of programming around the 2020 Democratic National Convention, which feels like it was ages ago, but was like a month ago. Now we're staring down November 3rd in the home stretch. Early voting is already happening in some states. What is the latest that our supporters should know about the Veterans and Military Families effort that you're leading, and what can they do to help elect Joe Biden as our next commander-in-chief?
Yeah, well, and it does seem like a long time ago when we were having these conversations around the convention. But Joe Biden's message today is the same it was when we entered the race. He believes at his core that we're a battle for the soul of our nation. It is clear that Joe Biden is the same person now as he was before the two conventions, despite President Trump's attempts to reshape this race at his, whatever it was, at the White House South Lawn and over the last month, driving division and instability. And a lot of remarks about yesterday's comment about recognizing the peaceful transfer of power, almost accepting that he'll probably not be in the winner's circle and we'll have something to fight about. And so that's up to us. We are in the fight till the very end. We are taking no vote for granted. We are trying to say, just like in the military, leave no man behind, leave no ballot behind. And that's what we need to be doing. So we're trying to do this as safely as possible. So we're not having these huge rallies that are basically COVID experiments happening every time Trump has a rally. There's a spike in that community COVID testing for the next 2 weeks. And, there's no playbook for organizing during a pandemic. So we're doing it by events like this. I appreciate VoteVets support and national security leaders for Biden's support on events like this. We're having tabletop conversations around the country in battleground states with veterans and military family members, many who are on this call, I know, today. And then, at the end of the day, I think Mike said it earlier about talking how, we're seeing erosion in the disaffected voters, the independents, the suburban voters, the older Americans. And this letter from national security leaders for Biden helped that. And, we're trying to reach out to them. We've made a huge investment in digital advertising, TV, and also people. I think before the convention, we were in the hundreds. Now we're in the thousands of staff going out there and making it happen. So for the folks that are watching, I appreciate you still watching, but if I could ask you.
Looks like we just lost the audio for a second there, Leo. I'm not sure. Let's see. Try it one more time. Let's see if we can get it to work.
All right. Of course.
Back.
Yeah, of course it happened right at the end of my big pitch.
Yeah, go for it.
If you're still watching, please visit joebiden.com/VMF. That's joebiden.com/VMF for veterans and military families to sign up, to hear about many events like this, to learn about how you can vote early. I just received my ballot in the mail, and we'll be returning it today. And we just got to go out there and win this thing. We got to win this thing by, as I said yesterday, tweeted out, was win it by a couple touchdowns. So there's no doubt, and we won't have to worry about whether or not Trump will recognize the win, because a win will be a win. And there's a map that we can play out where Donald Trump wins by 271, which is very scary. There's a map where we win by 400. So I'd rather err on the side of the 400 than just winning by the skin of our teeth with 270. So appreciate all your support. We have 40 days left to go out there and get the W for Joe Biden, America, and the Navy football team.
Oh, I was going to say winning by 2 touchdowns. That sounds like Army at this December's game. Leo, one more time, give us the website for people to sign up to join your efforts.
JoeBiden.com/VMF, Victor Mike Foxtrot, for veterans and military family.
There you go. Leo Cruz, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for everything you do.
Thanks, Will.
Awesome. And that concludes today's special VoteVets Live marking the launch of National Security Leaders for Biden. I want to thank you all for joining us. Thanks for everything that you do each and every day. We heard it from leaders across the board today. This election is everything. The future of this country is on the line, and now is the time to get off the sidelines and get involved. We'll be with you every step of the way, and we'll look forward to seeing you back right here on VoteVets Live. Thank you, and have a great day.